The summer evening air hung thick and humid as I stepped onto our back porch, cold beer in hand. After 12 hours of laying foundation at the Henderson site, all I wanted was to sit in my favorite chair and watch the sunset paint our small New England town in golden hues. What I got instead was a front row seat to my wife's betrayal. Elena's voice drifted from the garden, sharp with excitement. I'll take $50,000 to dump him at the altar. Connor thinks I'll cave for less, but he doesn't know me very well. I froze, beer halfway to my lips. My wife of 3 years stood near our prize-winning roses, phone pressed to her ear, completely oblivious to my presence. The late sun caught her blonde hair, making her look like the angel I'd fallen for. Funny how angels can have forked tongues. Matt's so predictable, she continued, laughing. He actually thinks I love this dump of a town. God, I can't wait to get out of here. My hands trembled as I set the beer down and pulled out my phone. Thank God for construction work, teaching me to move quietly. I hit record just as Elena's conversation took a darker turn. The prenup was brilliant, Bridget. If I file for divorce after the wedding, I get half of everything. But if I don't show up, Connor pays me $50,000, and I keep everything I've already moved to offshore accounts. It's foolproof. Bridget, her maid of honor. My stomach churned as I realized how deep this conspiracy went. What about Matt? Bridget's voice came through the speaker, tinny but clear. What about him? He's a contractor who peaked in high school. I'm PR director for the fastest growing marketing firm in Boston. I was slumming it, and now I'm done. Elena's laugh was like broken glass. Besides, Connor's already got the condo ready. Penthouse view, 2-car garage, and a wine cellar that costs more than Matt makes in a year. I pressed myself against the house, mind racing. 3 months of wedding planning. 3 months of her pretending to be excited about our future. 3 months of me working overtime to pay for the dream wedding she claimed to want. The best part? Elena's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Matt's been so sweet, working extra jobs to pay for everything. He even sold his grandfather's watch to afford the honeymoon. God, what an idiot. That watch had been in my family for 4 generations. I'd sold it last week to surprise her with a trip to Ireland, the country she'd always claimed she wanted to visit. The irony burned like acid in my chest. So the plan's set for Saturday? Bridget asked. Perfect. The wedding's at 2. I'll disappear around noon, leave a note about cold feet. Connor will comfort me, we'll drive to his place, and by evening we'll be celebrating while Matt explains to 300 guests why his bride ran off. Elena's voice turned vicious. I hope his mother cries. She never liked me anyway. My mother had died 2 years ago. She'd loved Elena like a daughter. I ended the recording and slipped back into the house, my mind spinning. Saturday was 4 days away. 4 days to figure out how to turn this around. In my workshop that night, I played the recording 3 times, each listen making me angrier. Elena thought she was so clever, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the man she was trying to destroy. I pulled up the prenup on my laptop, reading through the dense legal language until I found what I was looking for. Section 12, subsection C. In the event of adultery or fraud by either party, said party forfeits all claims to marital assets. Elena had been so focused on her exit strategy that she'd forgotten about the clause my lawyer had insisted on. The same clause she'd signed without reading. Too busy planning her betrayal to pay attention to details. My phone buzzed with a text from Rob, my business partner and oldest friend. Beer tomorrow? You sound stressed. I'd known Rob since kindergarten. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was him. I typed back, make it 2 beers. I've got a story to tell. The next morning, I woke to Elena humming in the shower, cheerful as a songbird. She emerged wearing her best business suit, the navy blue one that made her look professional and trustworthy. The irony wasn't lost on me. Morning, honey, she said, kissing my cheek. I've got meetings all day, then dinner with the girls to finalize wedding details. Don't wait up. Of course, I replied, watching her gather her things. Anything I can help with? Just be your wonderful, supportive self. Her smile was so genuine I almost doubted what I'd heard. Almost. After she left, I called in sick to work and drove to Murphy's Tavern, the kind of dive bar where the beer was cold and the gossip was hot. Barb, the owner, had been serving drinks and collecting secrets for 30 years. If anyone knew about Elena and Connor, it would be her. Matt Grady, she said as I slid onto a bar stool. Little early for you, isn't it? Special occasion, I said, ordering a coffee instead of beer. Wedding Saturday. So I heard. Your Elena's been making quite the rounds lately, talking about her big day. Barb's tone was carefully neutral, but her eyes held knowledge. Really? What's she been saying? Barb studied my face for a long moment. You sure you want to know? I'm sure. She leaned across the bar, lowering her voice. She's been in here twice this month with that Connor Laws boy. Real cozy, if you know what I mean. Talking about trips to Europe, expensive restaurants, the works. Connor Laws, trust fund baby who'd never worked a real day in his life. His father owned half the commercial real estate in town, and Connor spent his days playing with daddy's money and other men's wives. They seem close? I asked. Close enough that she was sitting on his lap last Tuesday, whispering about how she couldn't wait to start her real life. Barb shook her head. I'm sorry, Matt. I thought about calling you, but you weren't sure. Now I am. The way she looked at him. That's not how a woman looks at her friend 4 days before her wedding. I thanked Barb and drove to the construction site, my mind working overtime. Elena and Connor had been careless, leaving a trail of witnesses. That would make my job easier. That evening, I met Rob at O'Malley's, a sports bar on the other side of town. Rob took one look at my face and ordered 2 whiskeys. Spill it, he said. I played him the recording. Rob listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When it ended, he drained his whiskey and signaled for another round. Jesus Christ, Matthew. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure she doesn't get away with it. You thinking divorce lawyer? I'm thinking bigger than that. I pulled out my phone and showed him photos I'd taken of Elena's laptop screen that morning. Bank statements, email exchanges with Connor, even a reservation at a hotel in Vermont for this weekend. She's been planning this for months. Moving money, setting up accounts, the works. Rob whistled low. This is fraud, Matt. Real fraud. I know, and I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Rob had connections throughout the town, and between his network and mine, we could reach almost everyone who mattered. The wedding was being held at the historic Riverside Inn, the fanciest venue in 3 counties. Elena had invited everyone who was anyone, eager to show off her perfect life one last time. You sure about this? Rob asked as we prepared to leave. Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I thought about my grandfather's watch, about my mother's memory, about 3 years of lies wrapped in pretty smiles. I'm sure. Wednesday morning brought unseasonably cool weather and a text message that made my blood boil. Elena had sent me a photo of herself and Bridget at some upscale spa, both of them grinning at the camera with mud masks on their faces. Pre-wedding pampering. Can't wait to marry my best friend on Saturday. Love you. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. She was literally documenting her betrayal, creating evidence of her lies while planning to destroy my life in 3 days. I forwarded the message to Rob with a note. Phase 1 starts now. My first stop was Mrs. Connolly's house. The elderly widow lived next door and had a clear view of our driveway from her kitchen window. She was also the unofficial neighborhood watch, keeping track of every coming and going on our street. Matthew, dear, she said, inviting me in for coffee, how are the wedding preparations going? That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, Mrs. Connolly. I need to ask you about some things you might have seen. Her weathered face grew serious. What kind of things? Elaine has been having some visitors when I'm at work. I'm hoping you might have noticed. Mrs. Connolly set down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. That young man with the fancy car? Tall, dark hair, drives a Tesla? That's the one. He's been here at least 6 times in the past month. Always when you're gone. Stays for hours. She paused, clearly uncomfortable. Matthew, I don't like to gossip, but what? Last week I saw them loading suitcases into his car. Elena looked around real nervous-like, as if she didn't want to be seen. My heart hammered against my ribs. What day was that? Tuesday, around 10 in the morning, the same day Barb had seen them at Murphy's Tavern. Elena was moving her belongings to Connor's place, bit by bit, preparing for her grand exit. Mrs. Connolly, would you be willing to tell other people what you've seen? If it became necessary? The old woman's eyes flashed with anger. That girl's been lying to you, hasn't she? Yes, ma'am, she has. Then you just let me know what you need, dear. I never did trust her, too slick by half. I spent the rest of Wednesday gathering evidence and allies. Tom Bradley from the bank confirmed that Elena had been moving large sums to accounts he couldn't access. Sarah Mitchell from the post office mentioned seeing Elena mail several packages to a Boston address that wasn't our home. Even Father Mackenzie from St. Mary's, where we were supposed to be married, admitted he'd had concerns about Elena's commitment during their pre-marriage counseling sessions. She seemed more interested in the ceremony than the sacrament, he said carefully. When I asked about her vows, she kept talking about the reception. By Thursday morning, I had a clear picture of Elena's deception and a growing network of people who'd suspected something was wrong. The final piece fell into place when Rob called with information about Connor. You're going to love this, he said. Connor's been bragging at the country club about his new investment opportunity. Apparently, he's been telling people he's about to close a big deal that'll set him up for life. He's talking about Elena like she's a business transaction. Gets better. Jimmy Morrison was there Tuesday night when Connor got drunk and started running his mouth. According to Jimmy, Connor said he was buying himself a trophy wife and that the husband's too stupid to see it coming. The rage that had been simmering in my chest for 2 days finally boiled over. Where is he now? Probably at his condo. Why? Because it's time Mr. Laws learned that stupid husbands can be dangerous. Connor lived in Harborview Towers, the most expensive building in town. 20 floors of glass and steel overlooking the water, with a parking garage that required a key card to access. Fortunately, Rob's cousin worked building maintenance and owed us a favor. You sure about this? Rob asked as we stood in the garage at midnight looking at Connor's pristine white Tesla. Absolutely. I brought my tools and a few special supplies from the construction site. Nothing that would cause permanent damage, but enough to send a clear message. I started with the tires, letting the air out slowly so they'd go flat over several hours. Then I used washable paint to decorate the windshield with a simple message, Homewrecker. The piece de resistance was a construction cone placed on the hood with a note attached, reserved for cheating scumbags. We were back in Rob's truck and halfway across town before Connor would even know what happened. Thursday evening, Elena came home late and distracted, barely acknowledging my presence as she rushed around the house, making mysterious phone calls and checking items off lists I wasn't allowed to see. Everything okay? I asked, playing the concerned fiancé. Just wedding stress, she said, without looking up from her phone. Bridget's handling the final details and the caterer's having some issues with the menu. She'd almost said Connor's name. The mask was slipping. Anything I can do to help? No, you've done enough. The words came out sharper than she'd intended, and she quickly softened her tone. You've been so wonderful, honey. Just let me handle the last-minute stuff. I nodded and retreated to my workshop, where I spent the evening preparing for Saturday. The wedding was scheduled for 2 o'clock, with cocktails starting at 1. Elena planned to disappear around noon, leaving me to face the humiliation alone. But Elena had made a crucial error in her planning. She'd assumed I'd be the same trusting fool who'd bought her act for 3 years. She'd assumed I'd crumble under the weight of public embarrassment, that I'd slink away and lick my wounds, while she rode off into the sunset with Connor and his money. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. Friday morning brought a frantic phone call from Connor that I wasn't supposed to overhear. Elena took it in the kitchen while I pretended to read the newspaper in the living room. What do you mean someone vandalized your car? Elena's voice was sharp with panic. Connor's response was loud enough for me to catch fragments. Paint everywhere, security cameras, probably just kids. This is the worst possible timing, Connor. What if someone suspects? Calm down. Just a coincidence. Everything's still on for tomorrow. Elena ended the call and stood in the kitchen for several minutes, clearly rattled. When she finally joined me for breakfast, her hands were shaking. Everything all right? I asked innocently. Fine, just some vandalism at Connor's building. Probably teenagers. That's terrible. Good thing it wasn't worse. She nodded absently, picking at her eggs. Matt, about tomorrow. My pulse quickened. What about it? I just want you to know that whatever happens, I care about you. It was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get, and it wasn't even real. She was trying to ease her conscience, to make herself feel better about what she was planning to do. I love you too, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, part of me still loved the woman I'd thought she was. That afternoon, while Elena was supposedly at her final dress fitting, I made my own preparations. The recording equipment was tested and ready. My allies were in position. The evidence was compiled and organized. Most importantly, I had had a long conversation with my lawyer about the prenup and what Elena's actions meant legally. The news was better than I'd hoped. If you can prove fraud and adultery, she gets nothing, he'd said, not just from the marriage. But she'll have to return everything she's already taken. The offshore accounts, the jewelry, even the furniture she bought with joint credit cards. And if I can prove conspiracy, then she and her boyfriend might be looking at criminal charges. Elena came home that evening glowing with excitement, talking nonstop about how perfect everything was going to be. She showed me her dress, her shoes, her jewelry, chattering about flower arrangements and seating charts and how magical tomorrow would be. I smiled and nodded and played my part, all while thinking about the surprise I had waiting for her. That night, as Elena slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. In 12 hours, our marriage would be over. In 12 hours, Elena would learn that actions have consequences. In 12 hours, I would have my revenge. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect weather that makes people believe in happy endings. Elena woke up humming, practically bouncing out of bed with excitement. "I can't believe it's finally here," she said, spinning around our bedroom like a teenager. "Our wedding day." The irony was so thick I could taste it. I can't believe it either. Elena spent the morning getting ready at Bridget's house, leaving me alone to make my final preparations. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the charcoal gray one Elena had helped me pick out 6 months ago. I wanted to look good for what was coming. At 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Getting cold feet. Need some time to think. Don't worry, just pre-wedding jitters. See you at the altar." I stared at the message, marveling at her performance. Even her fake panic was calculated, designed to buy her time and throw me off balance. I texted back, "Take all the time you need. I'll be waiting." At noon exactly, my phone rang. Elena's voice was breathless, tearful, Academy Award worthy. "Matt, I'm so sorry. I can't do this. I thought I could, but I can't. I'm not ready for marriage. I need time to figure out who I am." "Elena, what are you talking about? The wedding's in 2 hours." I know, and I feel terrible. But I can't marry you when I'm not sure about my feelings. It wouldn't be fair to either of us." In the background, I could hear Connor's voice. "Tell him you'll call later." "I have to go," Elena continued. "I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days, clear my head. Can you handle the wedding? Tell everyone I'm sick or something?" "Elena, wait!" The line went dead. I sat in my truck outside the historic Riverside Inn, watching guests arrive in their finest clothes, carrying wrapped gifts and bright smiles. 300 people had cleared their Saturday afternoon to celebrate what they thought was going to be the happiest day of our lives. Elena expected me to walk in there, announce that the bride had fled, and endure the pitying looks and awkward condolences. She expected me to be humiliated while she celebrated her freedom in Connor's penthouse. Instead, I grabbed my equipment bag and headed for the inn's back entrance. Rob was waiting for me in the service corridor, along with Tom Bradley from the audiovisual company we'd hired for the reception. "Everything's set up," Tom said. "The wireless microphone will override the sound system, and the video screens are ready to go." "You sure about this, Matt?" Rob asked one more time. "This is going to be nuclear." I thought about Elena's laugh when she'd called me predictable. I thought about my grandfather's watch, and my mother's memory, and 3 years of lies. "I'm sure." At 1:45, I walked into the main ballroom. The space was magnificent, decorated with white roses and golden ribbons, exactly as Elena had dreamed. Guests filled the chairs, murmuring with concern about the bride's absence. Father Mackenzie approached me with worry written across his face. "Matthew, where's Elena? People are starting to ask questions." "She'll be here," I said calmly, "just running a little late." I took my position at the altar, Rob beside me as my best man. The wedding march began, and everyone turned toward the back of the room, expecting to see Elena in her white dress. Instead, they saw me walking back down the aisle, wireless microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "Thank you all for being here today. I know you came to witness a wedding, and I promise you won't be disappointed. You're about to see something you'll never forget." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elena's parents looked panicked. Connor's father, sitting in the third row, leaned forward with interest. Before we begin, I continued, I want to share something with you. Something that will help you understand why today is so special. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system. Elena's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear and unmistakable. I'll take $50,000 to dump him at the altar. Connor thinks I'll cave for less, but he doesn't know me very well. The reaction was immediate and electric. Gasps, shocked exclamations, people turning to stare at each other in disbelief. Elena's mother went white as a sheet. Connor's father stood up, his face thunderous. But I wasn't done. The recording continued, Elena's voice describing her plans in devastating detail. Her contempt for me, for our town, for everyone who'd believed in her act. Her conspiracy with Connor, her financial fraud, her calculated cruelty. When it ended, the silence was deafening. That recording was made Wednesday evening, I said into the microphone. Elena didn't get cold feet this morning. She's been planning this betrayal for months. I nodded to Tom, who activated the video screens positioned around the room. Bank records appeared, showing Elena's systematic theft of our joint assets. Email exchanges with Connor, detailing their plans. Photos of them together at hotels, restaurants, his condo. Elena thought she was so clever, I continued. She thought I was too stupid to see what was happening. She was wrong. The crowd was riveted, hanging on every word. This was better than any soap opera, and it was happening right in front of them. She also thought she could steal from me and disappear without consequences. She was wrong about that too. I pulled out a legal document and held it up. This is our prenuptial agreement. Section 12, subsection C, states that in the event of adultery or fraud, the guilty party forfeits all claims to marital assets. Elena signed this contract 3 months ago. Elena's father stood up, his face red with rage. This is outrageous! You can't humiliate our family like this. Your daughter humiliated herself, I replied calmly. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. Mrs. Connolly stood up from her seat in the 5th row. I saw that girl loading suitcases into that boy's car. She's been lying to all of us. Other voices joined in. Barb, from Murphy's Tavern, described seeing Elena and Connor together. Tom Bradley talked about the suspicious financial transactions. Sarah, from the post office, mentioned the packages mailed to Boston. The crowd turned ugly, their sympathy for the abandoned groom transforming into anger at the lying bride. Elena's friends looked mortified. Connor's business associates whispered among themselves, clearly reconsidering their relationships with him. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. What's happening? People are calling me. I held up the phone so everyone could see the message. Elena wants to know what's happening. Should I tell her? The crowd roared its approval. I typed back. Your wedding reception is going perfectly. Everyone knows exactly who you are now. My phone immediately rang. Elena's panicked voice came through the speakers as I answered on the wireless system. Matt, what are you doing? People are saying terrible things. I'm telling the truth, Elena. Something you should try sometime. You can't do this. You're ruining everything. You already ruined everything. I'm just cleaning up the mess. In the background, Connor's voice was clearly audible. Hang up! Don't say anything else. Is that Connor? I asked. Your $50,000 boyfriend? Put him on. I'd love to thank him for taking you off my hands. The line went dead, but the damage was done. Everyone in the room had heard Connor's voice, confirming the conspiracy. Elena's boss, Margaret Winters from the marketing firm, stood up near the back. Matthew, I want to apologize. We had no idea Elena was capable of this kind of deception. Thank you, Margaret. I know this reflects poorly on your company. Actually, it reflects poorly on Elena. She's no longer employed with us as of right now. The crowd murmured approval. Elena's betrayal was costing her everything. Exactly as it should. Connor's father approached the front of the room, his face grim. Matthew, I want you to know that my son's actions don't represent our family's values. We're appalled by his behavior. I appreciate that, Mr. Laws. Connor's trust fund is being frozen immediately. If he wants to play house with your ex-wife, he can do it on his own dime. The crowd cheered. Connor was losing his meal ticket, along with his reputation. As the afternoon wore on, the reception transformed into something unprecedented. Instead of celebrating a marriage, we were celebrating justice. The catered dinner was served, the band played, and people danced. But instead of toasting the happy couple, They were toasting the truth. Rob raised his glass during the traditional best man speech. To Matt Grady, who reminded us all that actions have consequences, and that good guys can finish first. The toast was echoed throughout the room. To Matt! My phone continued buzzing with increasingly frantic messages from Elena and Connor, but I ignored them. They'd made their bed, and now they could lie in it. As the evening wound down, Father Mackenzie approached me. Matthew, I have to ask, do you feel good about what you've done here? I considered the question carefully. Father, Elena tried to destroy my life for money. She stole from me, lied to me, and planned to humiliate me in front of everyone I care about. All I did was tell the truth. He nodded slowly. Sometimes the truth is the harshest punishment of all. As the last guest departed, Rob and I stood in the empty ballroom, surrounded by the remnants of what should have been my wedding reception. So what now? Rob asked. Now Elena learns that her actions have consequences she never imagined. My phone buzzed one final time. Elena's text was desperate. Please, Matt. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I typed back. There's nothing to explain. You made your choice. Now live with it. Then I blocked her number and walked out of the inn, leaving the wreckage of Elena's plans behind me. Sunday morning brought a parade of visitors to my door, each carrying news of Elena and Connor's spectacular downfall. The first was Mrs. Connolly, arriving with fresh coffee cake and the latest gossip. That girl's been calling everyone in town, she reported with obvious satisfaction. Crying, making excuses, trying to blame you for embarrassing her. Nobody's buying it. The second visitor was Margaret Winters, Elena's now former boss. She sat in my living room, shaking her head in disbelief. 24 hours ago, Elena was our rising star, Margaret said. Today, she's unemployable in this industry. Word travels fast in PR, and nobody wants to hire someone who can't be trusted. What about her clients? I asked. Gone. Every single one. The Henderson account called this morning to terminate their contract. They said they couldn't work with someone who showed such poor judgment in her personal life. Margaret paused, studying my face. You know, Elena always claimed you were holding her back professionally. Turns out she was her own worst enemy. The third visitor was Connor's father, looking older than his 65 years. He accepted my offer of coffee, but barely touched it. I've frozen Connor's accounts, he said, without preamble. The trust fund, the credit cards, even his membership at the country club. He's on his own now. That seems harsh, I said, not meaning it. Is it? My son conspired to defraud you and destroy your marriage for money. If I don't cut him off now, what's to stop him from doing it again to someone else? Mr. Laws stood to leave, then turned back. Connor came to me this morning, begging for money to help Elena. Said they were in love and wanted to start fresh somewhere else. You know what I told him? What? I told him that love doesn't steal from innocent people. What he feels for Elena isn't love. It's greed and selfishness, and I won't finance either one. By noon, I had a clear picture of the devastation Elena and Connor had brought on themselves. Elena was jobless, friendless, and rapidly running out of money. Connor was cut off from his family fortune and facing potential criminal charges for his role in the fraud. Their dream of riding off into the sunset together had become a nightmare of their own making. My phone rang around 2 o'clock. The caller ID showed Elena's mother. Matthew, Patricia's voice was strained. We need to talk. About what? About Elena. She's not doing well. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but I pushed it down. Where is she? At Connor's condo, but he kicked her out this morning when his father cut off his money. She's been sitting in her car in the parking lot for hours, calling everyone she knows, looking for help. And? No one will take her calls. Her friends, her colleagues, even some of our relatives. They all saw the video. The video. I'd forgotten about that. Someone at the wedding had recorded my speech and Elena's phone call, posting it online within hours. By this morning, it had been shared thousands of times across social media platforms. Patricia, I'm sorry Elena's having a hard time, but she made her choices. She wants to apologize, to explain. There's nothing to explain. She tried to steal $50,000 and destroy my life. The only thing I'm sorry about is that it took me 3 years to see who she really was. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. What about forgiveness, Matthew? Isn't that what marriage is about? We're not married, I reminded her. Elena made sure of that. After hanging up, I drove to the construction site where Rob and I were building the Henderson Foundation. Physical work had always helped me think, and I needed to process everything that had happened. Rob found me there an hour later, mixing concrete with more force than necessary.
Heard from Elena?
He asked. Her mother called. Apparently, Elena's having regrets. Too little, too late. That's what I told Patricia. I paused in my work, wiping sweat from my forehead. Rob, do you think I went too far yesterday? Rob considered the question seriously. You want my honest opinion? Always. Elena planned to steal your money, destroy your reputation, and leave you to face the humiliation alone. She showed no mercy, so why should you? But seeing her like this... Like what? Facing the consequences of her actions? Matt, if you hadn't exposed her, she'd be laughing about it right now. She'd be spending your money and bragging to her friends about how easy it was to fool you. Rob was right, but it didn't make me feel better. Despite everything Elena had done, I'd loved her once. Seeing her destroyed, even by her own actions, was harder than I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Connor. We need to meet. I showed the message to Rob, who snorted with disgust. What could he possibly want? Only one way to find out. I typed back, Murphy's Tavern. 1 hour. Connor was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his head in his hands. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, eyes red with exhaustion or tears or both. Thanks for coming, he said, as I sat down across from him. Talk. I want to make this right. Little late for that. Connor leaned forward, desperation clear in his voice. I know what we did was wrong. I know we hurt you. But Elena's falling apart, Matt. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's been sleeping in her car. And you're telling me this because I love her. The words hung in the air between us. I studied Connor's face, looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was misery. You love her, I repeated. Is that why you offered her $50,000 to leave me? That was different. That was before I really knew her. You've known Elena for years, Connor. You grew up in the same town. But I didn't know her. Not really. Not until these past few months. Connor's voice cracked. She's brilliant, Matt. And funny. And ambitious. And she deserves better than this. She deserves exactly what she got. Does she? Does anyone deserve to lose everything? I thought about my grandfather's watch, about my mother's memory, about 3 years of lies. Elena didn't just lie to me, Connor. She stole from me. She planned to humiliate me in front of everyone I care about. She showed no mercy, so why should I show her any? Because you're a better man than that. The comment hit me like a physical blow. Was I? Had I become so focused on revenge that I'd lost sight of who I wanted to be? What do you want from me? I asked. Help her. Please. You don't have to take her back, but help her get back on her feet. She's learned her lesson. Has she? Or is she just sorry she got caught? Connor didn't answer, which was answer enough. I left Murphy's Tavern more conflicted than I'd been since this whole mess started. Part of me, the part that had loved Elena for 3 years, wanted to help her. But the larger part, the part that remembered her laughter when she'd called me predictable, knew that some actions couldn't be forgiven. That evening, I sat in my workshop, staring at the divorce papers my lawyer had prepared. Elena's signature was required on several documents, but she'd been avoiding the process servers for days. My phone rang. Elena's voice was barely recognizable, hoarse with crying. Matt, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Help me. Help you what? Start over. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll give back everything I took. Just please don't leave me with nothing. For a moment, I wavered. This was the woman I'd planned to spend my life with, reduced to begging for mercy. But then I remembered her voice on that recording, cold and calculating as she planned my destruction. Elena, you didn't leave me with nothing by accident. You planned it. You worked for months to make sure I'd be destroyed while you rode off into the sunset with Connor's money. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Matt. I was stupid and greedy, and I thought I wanted something different. You did want something different. You wanted Connor's money and his lifestyle. The only thing you're sorry about is that it didn't work out. That's not true, isn't it? If Connor's father hadn't cut him off, would you be calling me? If you still had your job and your friends and your reputation, would you care about my forgiveness? Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small and defeated. I don't know. At least she was being honest. The divorce papers are ready, I said. Sign them, and this can all be over. And then what? I have no job, no money, no place to live. My own parents won't even talk to me. Then you'll have to figure it out. The same way I would have had to figure it out if your plan had worked. I hung up and turned off my phone. Elena had made her choice when she decided to betray me. Now she had to live with the consequences. But as I sat in the darkness of my workshop, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in my quest for justice, I'd lost something important. Maybe Connor was right. Maybe I was better than this. Or maybe some betrayals were simply unforgivable. Monday morning brought unexpected news. My lawyer called with an update that changed everything. Matt, we've got a problem, David said. Elena's hired representation. A good lawyer from Boston who specializes in fraud cases. So he's claiming Elena was coerced into the conspiracy. Says Connor manipulated her, threatened her, forced her to participate against her will. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair. That's ridiculous. Maybe, but it's a smart legal strategy. If Elena can prove she was a victim rather than a co-conspirator, she might avoid criminal charges. More importantly for you, she might be able to challenge the prenup. On what grounds? Duress. If she can convince a judge that she was forced into the fraud scheme, she could argue that she's entitled to spousal support as an abuse victim. The irony was staggering. Elena was trying to turn her betrayal into victimhood, her greed into innocence. Worse, it might actually work. What do we do? I asked. We need more evidence. Something that proves Elena was a willing participant, not a victim. I thought about the recording, about Elena's laughter when she'd called me predictable. I might have something. That afternoon, I drove to Harborview Towers, Connor's building. The doorman, a guy named Pete, whom I'd known since high school, let me into the parking garage. Heard about what happened at your wedding, Pete said. That was some speech. Thanks. Listen, I need a favor. Connor Laws, has he been around lately? Nah, haven't seen him since Saturday night. Word is his old man cut him off, so he's probably laying low somewhere. What about Elena? My ex-wife? Pete's expression darkened. She's been here every day, sitting in her car, waiting for him to come back. Building management's getting complaints from residents. She's here now? Parking level B, space 47. But Matt, she looks rough. Real rough. I found Elena's car exactly where Pete had said it would be. She was slumped in the driver's seat, wearing the same clothes she'd had on Saturday morning. When she saw me approaching, she scrambled out of the car, hope and desperation warring on her face. Matt! Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her makeup smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled and stained. This wasn't the polished, confident woman who'd planned my destruction. This was someone who'd lost everything and didn't know how to cope. Your lawyer called my lawyer, I said without preamble, claiming you were coerced, that Connor forced you into the conspiracy. Elena's face flushed red. I had to do something. I'm facing criminal charges, Matt. I could go to prison. So you decided to lie again? It's not a lie. Connor did manipulate me. He made me think you didn't love me, that our marriage was a mistake. He convinced me that leaving you was the right thing to do. I pulled out my phone and played the recording again. Elena's voice crystal clear in the concrete garage. Matt's so predictable. He actually thinks I love this dump of a town. I can't wait to get out of here. That sound like coercion to you? I asked. Elena's face crumpled. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. You said exactly what you meant. The only thing you regret is getting caught. That's not true. Prove it. Elena stared at me, confusion clear in her eyes. What? Prove you're sorry. Prove this isn't just another manipulation. How? I considered the question carefully. Elena had shown me no mercy when she'd planned my destruction. She'd been willing to steal my money, destroy my reputation, and leave me to face the humiliation alone. But standing there in that parking garage, looking at the wreckage of the woman I'd once loved, I realized that revenge wasn't making me feel better. It was making me feel empty. "Drop the victim act," I said finally. "Tell your lawyer the truth. Accept responsibility for what you did." "I can't. I'll go to prison." "Maybe. Or maybe the judge will show you the mercy you never showed me." Elena was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. "And if I do that? If I tell the truth and accept whatever happens, will you forgive me?" It was the question I'd been avoiding for days. Could I forgive Elena? Did I want to? "I don't know," I said honestly, "but it would be a start." Elena nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm scared, Matt." "You should be. You made some terrible choices. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." For the first time since I'd overheard her betrayal, Elena's apology sounded genuine. Not calculated, not manipulative, just human. "Sorry doesn't fix what you broke," I said. "I know, but it's all I have left." I looked at Elena, really looked at her, and saw not the calculating woman who'd planned my destruction, but the broken person who was living with the consequences. She'd lost her job, her friends, her family's respect, and her future. She was facing criminal charges and financial ruin. In many ways, she'd already paid a heavy price for her betrayal. "There's something else," I said. "Something you need to know." Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What?" "Connor's been telling people that this was all your idea, that you seduced him into the conspiracy, promised him things would work out if he just played along." Elena's face went white. "That's not true." "I know. I heard the recording too. But Connor's trying to save himself, and he's willing to throw you under the bus to do it. He said he loved me. He loved your plan to get rich. When that fell apart, so did his feelings." Elena sank against her car, the final blow landing with devastating impact. Not only had she lost everything, but the man she'd betrayed me for was now betraying her in return. "What do I do?" she whispered. "You tell the truth. All of it. About Connor, about the money, about everything. You stop trying to be the victim and start being honest about what you did. And then you live with the consequences, whatever they are." Elena nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Will you be there at the hearing?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let Elena face the music alone, the way she'd planned for me to do. But another part, the part that had loved her for 3 years, couldn't abandon her completely. "Yeah," I said. "I'll be there." 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom watching Elena tell the truth for the first time in months. She admitted to the fraud, to the conspiracy, to planning my humiliation. She accepted full responsibility for her actions and threw herself on the mercy of the court. Connor, sitting at the defendant's table beside her, looked furious as Elena's testimony implicated him in the scheme. His own lawyer had advised him to plead guilty and hope for leniency, but Connor was still trying to minimize his role. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s, listened to both testimonies before rendering her verdict. "Mr. Laws," she said, "your attempt to portray yourself as a passive participant in this fraud is unconvincing. The evidence clearly shows that you were an active and willing co-conspirator. You are sentenced to 2 years in state prison and ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $75,000. Connor's face went ashen. His lawyer patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Mrs. Grady," the judge continued, "your decision to accept responsibility and tell the truth has been noted by this court. However, your actions caused significant financial and emotional harm to your husband. You are sentenced to 18 months in state prison, suspended to 6 months with 3 years probation, and ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $50,000. Elena nodded, tears streaming down her face. She'd avoided the worst-case scenario, but her life was still in ruins. After the hearing, Elena approached me in the courthouse hallway. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for encouraging me to tell the truth. It was the right thing to do. I know it doesn't change anything, but I want you to know that I did love you. Maybe not the way I should have, maybe not enough, but I did love you. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was sadness and regret. I loved you too, I said. That's what makes this so hard. Elena nodded and turned to walk away, then stopped. Matt? Do you think, someday, do you think you'll be able to forgive me? I thought about the question that had been haunting me for weeks. Could I forgive Elena? Should I? Ask me again in a few years, I said. Elena smiled sadly and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of people entering and leaving the courthouse. I watched her go, feeling something I hadn't expected. Relief. It was over. The betrayal, the revenge, the legal battles, all of it was finally over. Elena would serve her time and try to rebuild her life. Connor would serve his, and hopefully learn that actions have consequences. And I would go home to my quiet house and figure out how to move forward. 6 months later, I received a letter from Elena, postmarked from the county jail. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. Matt, I'm using my time here to think about the person I want to be when I get out. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I'm trying to become someone who deserves forgiveness, even if I never receive it. Thank you for showing me what integrity looks like. I hope someday I'll have half as much as you do. Elena. I read the letter twice, then put it in my desk drawer. Maybe Elena was sincere. Maybe she was manipulating me one last time. I'd probably never know for sure. But for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt something approaching peace. Elena had faced the consequences of her actions. Justice had been served. And I had learned that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, was ultimately hollow. The real victory wasn't destroying Elena. It was discovering that I was strong enough to survive her betrayal, and decent enough to show mercy when she finally asked for it. I walked out to my workshop where Rob was waiting with 2 cold beers and plans for our next construction project. Life was moving forward, and so was I. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you were watching. Do you were watching? 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 Do you were watching?